Hello once again, and this is the second part of the part two, if you will, of Gap 3 in the lecture with regards to customer roles. So to this stage, we've been talking primarily about the employee. But when we're dealing with a service, remember back to our earlier discussions about the definition of service is that we have to have both an employee and a customer to deliver a service. So the customer has to play a role too, and we need to understand what that role is and how they go about doing what they're doing. So we like to look at the importance of the customer in that co-creation, if you will, of the delivery. We're going to look at customer roles, self-service technologies in terms of customers, and then strategy for enhancing customer participation. So how customers widen Gap 3? Lack of understanding of the roles. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. In other words, you go to a quick service restaurant and the menu may be up over your head, right? So you understand that, right? But what if you go to a restaurant where it's a cafeteria style? How do you know what that is? What's the role that you need to play? How do you know when you're going to a sit-down table service type restaurant? You know, what are the various things that are there? And those are the obvious ones, but they need to understand what their roles are. Maybe they're not willing to perform those roles. You know, in this day and age in the US, we've had some real challenges in restaurants and hotels too, for that matter, of people not wearing masks where they need to wear masks. I know that's a strange concept for those in Asia to understand where that's more acceptable, but there's a lot of people who feel like their freedoms are being taken away if they actually protect themselves and others around them, but that can be a real challenge. How do we deal with that? And no rewards for good performance. So basically, we don't let them know when they've done well, and that can be a challenge, right? So interfering with other customers. You know, we might have one customer who's not very happy and they're voicing their complaints. That could be an issue. Customers who don't know how to stand in the right queue and put their and wait in the right aspects, and they're cutting in front of others, and so on. And incompatible market segments, that can be a big issue here. And I look at that in terms of, you know, going back historically. I think about how the Shangri-La in Singapore was designed. The Shangri-La in Singapore, if you don't know it, has three wings to it, basically. You have the tower wing, which is where the largest amount of rooms are, in the center of the hotel. And that's basically where a lot of the tour groups might be. You have the garden wing, and that is very resortish, and that's more individual vacationers, people that are coming through Singapore on a leisure basis. And then you have the valley wing, and the valley wing is the very upscale wing. Well, typically, especially in the early days of Japanese travel, when that was the predominant travel within Asia, the Japanese tour groups and the Japanese business travelers would not stay in the same hotel. The Shangri-La accomplished that because there were two separate wings. They may have shared the lobby and some of the restaurant area, but the tour groups were in one area, they were checked in one area, whereas the Valley Wing took the upscale business traveler and separated them out. And I think that's one of the ways you might say to, if you mesh the two together, you try and do two market segments at the same time, can be very incompatible. Who you have on the weekends versus who you have during the week, that can be a real challenge. So the customer roles and service delivery, you know, they have to be productive resources. We have to be able to make sure that they know what they need to do and how they need to do it. They have to be contributors to the service quality and satisfaction, because remember, it's an interaction. So when you deliver a quality service to someone, you want them to react favorably to that too. And you're serving them a meal in a restaurant, you want them to be positive. And then you have to realize that sometimes customers can be competitors to each other in terms of what they're actually looking for and the space that they're trying to get to and where they are in the queue for whatever it may be. All those kind of things can be a factor here. So customers as productive resources. We think of them as partial employees. So they contribute to the effort, time, and resources. Customers' inputs here are important. Should customer roles be expanded or reduced? You know, do we give them more freedom or less freedom? If we put everything on an app today, we're giving them a great deal of freedom. Is that good for us? Do we need to be that customized? Maybe we can't customize to that level. So maybe we need to have more of a structured way that they respond as opposed to a broader way. And what method do they prefer to do? Now, today we're doing keyless entry in terms of hotel rooms, for example. Some people, like myself, probably most of you, using your phone to go into a room is easy and you like it. You don't have to go through the desk. You don't have to go through anything else. But for people that are more technologically challenged, that may be a real problem for them. They may want to have the comfort of the old way of doing things with a key or key card. So customers contribute to service quality, right? So they own the satisfaction with the service. So by performing it and working properly with them, they will be satisfied, right? So performing their role effectively and working with the service provider, that's what we want. The quality of service they receive, well, asking questions. Maybe we have to have the right resources to be able to provide the right kind of answers. You have to allow them to take responsibility for their own satisfaction, and sometimes they complain when there's a service failure. All those kind of things we want. Remember, that's part of what we talked about. We want them to complain. We want them to tell us what their concerns are. So the importance here, other customers can be an issue. They can detract from satisfaction, disruptive, excessive, or incompatible needs. Customers can enhance service, though, by their mere presence. The business traveler, seeing other business travelers, for example, makes it more prestigious in terms of where they're staying. Socializing and friendships, the ability to do those kind of things, to create those kind of environments. And so they can be assistants, they can be teachers of others, they can be supporters. Customers can play all those roles. Now, I'm going to give an assignment here that you're going to do with your group in terms of defining these three aspects of customer effectiveness. Defining customer jobs, managing the customer service mix. How do you do that? How do you recruit, educate those customers? Those three areas. And I'm going to give you two different scenarios which your group will work with you on and have you determine some of the things that you would do in order to be more effective at that. So your strategies for defining customer roles: helping oneself, helping others, promoting the company. How do they do that? How do you recruit and educate customers? How do you recruit the right customers? How do you recruit the right customers to an event? How do you recruit the right customers to an attraction? How do you do that? How do you go about doing that, for example? Educate and training customers. How do you go through that? Reward customers for their contributions and avoid negative outcomes of inappropriate customer participation. So in other words, you want to make sure that you reward the positive and you try and eliminate the negative. And then managing that customer mix, as I talked about, managing the customer mix. And this is where this sort of comes into place. Customers can be competitors, right? They may compete with the same service provider. Internal exchange or external exchange, all those kind of things. Internally within the aspect of it, external exchange with the people, customers to themselves, one customer to another, for example. So internal, external decisions often are based on expertise, resource capacity, time capacity, economic rewards, psychic rewards, trust, control. All of those kind of factors fall into the area of customers as competitors. So if we don't see someone doing something effectively, or we see a customer interacting with one of our employees ineffective, and we don't like the way the employee is working with them, that could give us a trust factor here. And psychic rewards, we want to make sure that, hey, we want to be seen with the customers who are like us, if you will. So in compatibility aspect, I'll read this off. A process of first attracting homogeneous customers to a service environment. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should be the same, but certain customers for certain areas might be. Then actively manage both the physical environment and the customer-to-customer encounters. Like I said, what we did with the Shangri-La in Singapore, where we had two different types of customers, but we kept one type of customer in one area, another type of customer in the other area. So in such a way to enhance the encounters and minimize dissatisfying customers. Now, I'm not going to go through all these. You can read through these, and it's in your book, but these are characteristics of service that increase importance of compatible segments. So you're looking at customers as close physical proximity to each other. That can be an issue, especially now with regards to spacing, the issue of social distance, and examples of airlines, for example, sporting events. We're seeing this all over the world right now. Verbal interactions and so on. All these kind of things, and what are some of the examples of these? And again, you can expand on this. What are some of those examples of where you need to have more compatible customers? So in using the strategies for enhancing the customer, those three areas that we talked about before, I'm going to have you go through two different case scenarios. One of those is and I said attraction earlier. I should have said resort. That's really what I'm talking about here. One of those is a conference, and it's the Dreamforce conference that's held in San Francisco every year by the Salesforce company. And I'll let you learn a little bit more about it, but to give you kind of a basic background behind it, it is an exhibition with additional educational events and social events and so on, and it's a big deal. And who's coming to this are the people that Salesforce is trying to sell their software to. Who's exhibiting? Not necessarily Salesforce people, but all of their other vendors out there. The hardware companies that provide the platform to be able to launch that. The Salesforce salespeople themselves are involved in this, and they do big kind of events, and I challenge you to take a look at what they're doing this year. I don't believe it's actually happening, but it's a pretty major event, and it gives you a lot of the different perspectives here. So think about the different kinds of customers and how you would teach them, how you would make sure that you have the right mix, and so on. And then the Shangri-La Boracay Resort. Now this is one Shangri-La I haven't been to, but I know it was under construction at the time I was working for Shangri-La, and we used to bill it as a 6-star resort. I trust that it is. So again, how do you educate the customer with regards to, or how do you teach the customer's role with regards to a resort property with all the amenities that they have? I hope you'll have fun with it. And that completes the lecture.